Suburban Sentinel here with another follow-up video on the tragedy at the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. My subject here is the mass media's coverage of the event. And quite frankly, I really don't feel like making this video. Nothing anybody says or does is going to bring those people back. So to a certain extent, this is a lot of hot air. Despite my preference for focusing my attention on grasping the enormity of this situation, I think it's important to look at the mass media's coverage of the event from a boots-on-the-ground perspective. I went to the Sandy Hook school about an hour and a half after the shooting, not so much to report on the events, but to support a few friends that I know from Newtown who have school-aged children. Of course, I've been following the mainstream media's coverage of this tragic event as well. And the reason I'm making this video is because I've found some glaring inconsistencies between what I've seen, what I've heard from first responders, and what the mass media has been putting forth to the public. Again, I really don't care about this that much right now, but ultimately I think it's important because the Sandy Hook shootings are going to frame political debate in the United States in very short order. Irrespective of one's views of what is the appropriate response, if any, from a legislative perspective, I think it's important that we all start with the actual facts, not media conjecture or half-truths. As such, I'd like to review 4 sets of facts that the media, the mass media anyway, seems to be reporting as gospel uniformly throughout the major television and radio channels. I'm not saying that the mainstream media is wrong. However, on the following 4 issues, I have credible information that either contradicts or is inconsistent with the facts being asserted by the major media outlets. Sorry, the cats are up here keeping me company and decided to walk on screen. Issue number 1. How did the shooter get into the school? The mainstream media has been reporting that the shooter forced his way inside Sandy Hook School. Mainstream media has been somewhat vague about what type of force was used, but consistently the television and radio stations specifically allude to some sort of force. The front entrance to the Sandy Hook School has a secure door, and all visitors have to be buzzed in from a remote switch located inside the office. Yesterday, one of the first responders, a law enforcement officer, told me that one of the staff members buzzed the shooter in. That statement is, of course, inconsistent with the shooter using force to gain entry to the school. A different law enforcement officer said that for the police to gain access to the building, they had to break down the front door or break through the front entranceway. That would also be inconsistent with the media's report of the use of force, because if the front door had already been compromised, the police would not have had to use force themselves. The only way that all of these statements could be consistent is if the shooter used the threat of force to coax a staff member to let him in. Certainly that's possible, but on its face, these three statements don't seem to reconcile, at least not without further explanation. Second issue, did the shooter have a quote-unquote assault rifle? The mainstream media has been reporting that the shooter had a long gun, a .223 caliber semi-automatic rifle that was legally purchased by the shooter's mother. And the media is referring to this weapon as an assault weapon. I'm calling out the mainstream media on this one. It seems highly unlikely that that's an accurate report. From both a technical and a legal standpoint, I seriously doubt that the shooter had an assault weapon. The state of Connecticut has had an assault weapons ban in effect since the Clinton years, so it seems very unlikely that the shooter's mother would have purchased a quote-unquote assault weapon in a legal fashion. The mainstream media is reporting that there were 3 weapons at the scene of this horrendous crime. One .223 caliber semi-automatic rifle and 2 handguns. The media has also been reporting that the .223 caliber rifle was found near the shooter's body. I find these allegations suspect because I saw a law enforcement officer removing what appeared to be an AR rifle from the trunk of the shooter's car, and I saw that with my own eyes. I have a high degree of certainty it was the shooter's car because the car itself was not either a police car or some unmarked car, and it was taped off with the yellow crime scene tape. Moreover, when the officer was retrieving the rifle from the trunk, there was a pretty good crowd of police officers surrounding the car, peering in through the windows. So this was obviously not an officer retrieving his own patrol rifle. Now, it could have been that the shooter had more than one long gun. However, that's inconsistent with the reporting that there was only one long gun and 2 handguns. And again, I'm not saying that the mass media is incorrect, but it certainly raises questions. The fourth issue is, what was the shooter wearing? Many of the mainstream media outlets report that the shooter was wearing body armor. And I find that a little bit hard to believe under the circumstances. It's my understanding that the shooter took all of the weapons and accessories to pull this incredible crime off from his mother's home. Assuming that the shooter took all of the materials from his mother's home, it's unlikely that he would have body armor. Connecticut is one of the few, if not the only state, where retail sale of body armor to anyone other than a law enforcement or military type is illegal. So it seems unlikely that the shooter would have gotten body armor from his mother. Certainly the shooter could have obtained body armor either illegally in this state or legally in another state. But it just raises the question. So that's all I have tonight. Again, I really did not want to make this video. There's so many other more important things to think about. But again, the political consequences of this case may affect all of our legal rights. I'll make another follow-up video as I obtain further information. Please keep the victims and their families in your thoughts and prayers. This is the Suburban Sentinel. Thanks for watching.